So I want to start today with a visual. Just picture a small orange fuzzy creature with this giant yellow mustache.
Oh, please tell me we are diving into the Lorax today.
We are absolutely diving into the Lorax, but I have to be honest here. When I first pulled this book out of the research stack for this deep dive, I really thought we were just doing a nostalgia trip.
Right, like Environmentalism 101.
Exactly. But then I actually sat down and read it again, like as an adult. And it's not the happy little rhyme fest I remembered from childhood.
No, it's surprisingly dark, actually.
It's bleak. The whole thing is a tragedy. But looking at the notes we have, it seems Dr. Seuss might have accidentally or maybe intentionally written one of the heaviest philosophical challenges of the last century.
It definitely holds a lot more weight than people give it credit for. I mean, most of us just remember the truffula trees and the swummy swans. But the central thesis of the book is actually devastating, and it all hinges on that one specific quote.
The one on every inspirational poster in every fourth grade classroom.
Right. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.
Yeah, unless someone like you cares.
But I want us to really look at that word cares for a second.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because usually when we talk about changing the world or fixing things, we talk about action, doing stuff.
Precisely. And Seuss didn't say, unless someone like you acts. He didn't say, unless someone like you fixes it. He specifically said, cares. And in the context of the historical and philosophical sources we're looking at today, that distinction is crucial.
But doesn't caring sound just a little bit passive? Like I could say, oh, I care about the whales, but I'm really just sitting on my couch watching a documentary and eating popcorn. I'm not actually doing anything.
Well, that's how we tend to use the word today. But the source material for this deep dive defines caring completely differently. It calls it moral gravity.
Moral gravity. That sounds heavy.
It is heavy. If you think about actual gravity, it's a force that pulls you right. It anchors you to the ground. Moral gravity is the refusal to look away. It's the willingness to let something outside of yourself press on you, to carry the weight of a problem even when it's highly inconvenient.
So it's not just feeling sad when you see a depressing commercial on TV.
No, it's not a fleeting emotion at all. It's a permanent state of being tethered to the world.
Got it. And our mission for this deep dive is to trace that specific kind of gravity. We're going to look at how this idea of caring travels from Dr. Seuss through the mind of a Roman emperor onto a baseball diamond in Colorado and even into the hold of a slave ship.
Which is a massive historical range.
It is. And honestly, it sounds exhausting. I mean, if I have to be tethered to all the world's problems, I'm going to burn out at about 20 minutes.
You're not wrong about that. And that burnout is exactly the problem we need to solve today. Our goal is to figure out how to be that someone the Lorax is talking about without completely destroying ourselves in the process. Because the truth is, biology is actually working against us here.
Wait, how so?
Well, we simply aren't wired to care about everything everywhere all at once. We are tribal animals by nature. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept from the Stoic philosopher Hierocles. He built this mental model called the concentric circles.
Okay, walk me through this. Is it like a archery target?
Exactly like a target. So
Yeah.
imagine you were standing right in the bullseye, the very center point. That is you, your body, your immediate physical needs.
Okay, so I'm in the center.
Right. Now draw a circle around that center. That ring is your immediate family, your spouse, your kids. Then you draw another ring outside of that one. That's your extended family and friends.
And it just keeps going out.
Exactly. Next ring is your neighbor, then your fellow citizens. And eventually, way out on the absolute edge, the furthest ring is humanity as a whole.
And I assume the idea is that the gravity of the caring gets weaker the further out you go from the center.
It's not just an idea, it's a biological reality. If you see your own child in danger, you don't stop to think. You just act. The pull is immediate. But if you hear about a tragedy in a country you've never visited, you might feel a pang of sympathy, but you probably aren't losing sleep over it.
Which just feels like basic survival instinct.
Yeah.
I mean, if I treated every stranger on the street exactly like my own kid, I'd go insane.
Heracles would completely agree with you on how difficult it is, but he challenges the conclusion we draw from it. And this tension between the inner circle and the outer circle is actually super relevant right now.
Yeah, we have some notes here about a recent public debate involving J.D. Vance and the Catholic concept of ordo amoris.
Right, Ordo Amoris.
Which sounds like a spell from Harry Potter, honestly.
It's Latin for the Order of Loves.
Mm.
And Vance invoked this idea, which actually goes way back to thinkers like Augustine and Aquinas, to argue that our affections are naturally ordered toward our own people.
So our political policies should reflect that. Basically arguing we owe more to our own citizens than to strangers because that is the natural order of things.
Exactly. And on the flip side, you had the Pope and various Catholic charities pushing back on that policy stance pretty hard. But here is the fascinating nuance in the research that I really don't want us to miss.
Okay, what is it?
Both sides actually agree that the natural order exists.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they both agree the circles are real. The philosophical divergence, and this is exactly where Heracles comes in, is what we are supposed to do with that reality.
So one side says the circles exist, so let's respect them. Let's focus on the center and protect it.
Right. But Hierocles and the broader Stoic tradition argued that the entire work of philosophy is to disturb that natural order, to actively pull the outer circles inward.
Pull them inward,
Yeah.
like mentally shrinking the target.
Yes. The daily practice is to try and treat the stranger like a neighbor, to treat the neighbor like a brother, to treat the brother like yourself. Heracles admitted this was a radical way to live. He even called it a beautiful madness.
A beautiful madness. I do like that phrase. But practically speaking, that sounds impossible. If I try to care about a starving child halfway across the world with the exact same intensity that I care about my own family, I mean, I'm just one person, that sounds like a recipe for a complete nervous breakdown.
You've just hit on the central paradox of this whole topic. How do you expand your heart to include the outer circles without breaking it?
Exactly. How do you do that?
The Stoics spent a massive amount of time wrestling with this very question. Because if caring is the engine of change, how do we keep from being destroyed when things don't actually change? This is where we have to talk about Epictetus.
The philosopher who was born a slave.
Yes. So he understood powerlessness better than almost anyone in history, and he warned that desire is a form of slavery.
Okay, but what kind of desire?
All of it. He wasn't just talking about desiring money or a fancy new chariot. He meant that even the desire for peace or the desire for the world to be a better place can enslave you.
Wait, hold on. Wanting the world to be a better place is a trap. That sounds incredibly cynical.
It sounds that way at first, doesn't it? But think about the mechanics of how emotion works. If you pin your emotional well-being on an outcome that you cannot control, you are making yourself a hostage to circumstance. If I need world peace to exist in order to be happy, I am never going to be happy.
Okay, I see the logic there. But the alternative just sounds like total apathy. If I stop wanting things to get better, do I just stop caring altogether?
That is the danger. And Diogenes, who was another philosopher in this vein, put it even more bluntly. He said, "It is the privilege of the gods to want nothing."
See, that's where I get off the bus. Want nothing. That sounds like being dead. Or just being a robot.
It does sound bleak if you interpret want nothing as do nothing. But the solution, and this is really the key to the entire deep dive, lies in distinguishing between caring as an emotion and caring as a practice.
But break that down for me. 'Cause right now, they feel like the exact same thing.
Caring as an emotion is highly transactional.
Yeah.
It essentially says, I will pour my heart into this cause, but only if I get a result. It stakes your inner peace on the harvest.
And caring as a practice.
Caring as a practice is untethering the action from the outcome entirely. You do the work simply because it is the right work to do, regardless of whether it actually works out in the end.
So you're like the Lorax.
Exactly like the Lorax. Think about the narrative of that book. The trees kept falling, the machine kept growing, but the Lorax didn't stop warning people. He didn't stop caring. He just didn't let the failure stop his daily practice. He was essentially a stoic sage wrapped in orange fur.
That shift from emotion to practice actually makes a lot of sense. It stops being about how I feel and starts being purely about what I do, which actually reminds me of the baseball example we have in our notes.
Oh, the Jamie Carroll story? I love this part.
We do. But we really need to explain this for the listeners who aren't huge baseball nerds.
Yeah.
Because Jamie Carroll was, well, on paper, he was basically a nobody.
He was 5'9", 170 pounds.
Which in professional sports is basically a toddler.
Right. And his stats were painfully average. He hit .251. He had almost zero power. If you were looking at his fantasy baseball stats, you would never, ever pick him for your team.
But the source mentions a consultant for the Colorado Rockies who explicitly told the team the most indispensable player on the market right now is Jamie Carroll.
And why did he say that? Because Carroll did the invisible work. The notes specifically mention a technique called hitting behind the runner.
Okay, we have to pause and explain that. because hitting behind the runner sounds like technical jargon, but it's actually this profound act of sacrifice on the field.
It really is. So imagine there's a teammate of yours on first base. Your job as the batter is to get him to second base so he's in scoring position. To do that, you might have to intentionally hit a ground ball to the right side of the field.
And when you do that, the defense throws you out at first base. You are out. Your personal batting average goes down. Your stats get worse.
Exactly. You are literally trading your own personal success for the team's progress. And it shows up in the newspaper the next day as a failure, as an out. It looks like failure to the casual fan. But inside the clubhouse, among the team, that is the ultimate form of care.
That connects so beautifully to what we were just saying. Caring isn't sentimental at all. It's highly technical. It's relentless. It's Jamie Carroll tanking his own batting average just to move a runner 90 feet.
It brings to mind that quote from Michael Jordan. He said, if you practice shooting 8 hours a day with bad form, you're just good at shooting the wrong way.
Yeah.
You can care loudly about the world, you can post on social media about it, you can scream about it. But if you aren't doing the technical sacrificial work, the Jamie Carroll work, are you actually helping anyone?
That's pretty uncomfortable to think about, honestly.
Yeah.
Because posting online is easy, hitting behind the runner is really hard, and frankly, it's completely thankless.
Beverly Sills, the opera singer, once said, there are no shortcuts to any place worth going. Caring looks like showing up on a random Tuesday and doing the boring, invisible work. It's avoiding what Benjamin Franklin called the small leak that sinks a great ship.
But here's the problem I have with all this. I want to be Jamie Carroll. I want to be the stoic sage who cares without needing any validation. But I'm just not. I have an ego. I get mad when I don't get credit for things. I snap at people when I'm tired.
Well, welcome to the human race.
It just feels like an impossibly high bar is what I'm saying.
It is a high bar, but you know who else felt exactly that way? Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome. The guy we literally look to as the ultimate stoic.
The guy who wrote the book on it.
Literally wrote the book. But we have to remember, Meditations wasn't a book he wrote for public consumption. It was his private diary. It was his personal journal written while he was out on miserable military campaigns.
So it wasn't a lecture to the masses?
No, not at all. If you read it closely, it's a record of him struggling every single day. He's constantly telling himself to stop complaining, to stop being so arrogant, to just get back on track.
So the great wise sage was actually just a guy sitting in a tent giving himself a pep talk every morning.
Exactly. He failed daily. But he had this really beautiful image he used to reset himself. He talked about the spring.
The spring inside.
Yes. He believed there is a spring of goodness inside every single person. And no matter how much filth gets piled on top of it, your failures, your bad moods, your past mistakes, your ego, the spring itself is still there. It remains fresh. You just have to dig down past the mud to find it again.
That's a really distinct view of human nature. It's basically the exact opposite of the concept of original sin, isn't it?
It is. The Stoics did not believe we were born broken or inherently bad. They believed our core nature is oriented toward the good. It's always recoverable. As the saying goes, never let your first draft be your final draft.
That is incredibly hopeful. But the notes also warn about a specific trap that people fall into when they start doing this kind of self-improvement work. They call it the snob problem.
Oh, this is so real.
Yeah.
Have you ever met someone who just discovered philosophy or maybe a new specific diet and suddenly they are just completely unbearable to be around?
Yes. Oh, you haven't read Epictetus in the original Greek. How cute.
Exactly. You start improving yourself and suddenly you look down on everyone else. You see someone reading a basic self-help book or, God forbid, getting life lessons from a Dr. Seuss book and you roll your eyes.
I will admit I have definitely hidden my copy of certain pop psychology books when fancy friends come over.
We all do it. But the Stoic rule for this is very simple. Be strict with yourself and tolerant of others.
Strict with yourself, tolerant of others.
If someone finds joy or moral instruction in a source that you think is lowbrow, just let them have it. The medium matters so much less than the message itself. If a rhyming orange creature makes someone care about the environment, that is a massive win. Don't be the gatekeeper of wisdom.
It really just brings us back to connection, doesn't it? If your self-improvement journey is isolating you from other people because you think you're better than them, you're entirely missing the point.
Precisely. And this idea of connection, of how we hold on to each other, is where the research takes a really serious turn. We need to talk about what the source calls the parent's promise.
Yeah, let's slow down for this part. The source material argues that the most important conversation a parent could ever have with a child isn't about their grades or doing their chores. It's simply looking at them and saying, I will always be your friend.
And that phrase can be controversial for some. You constantly hear parents say, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. And in terms of basic discipline, sure, that makes sense. But the source is talking about something much deeper here. It's about unconditional safety.
Right.
It's telling the child, no matter what happens out there in the world, you are completely safe here. You are connected.
It creates a template for them. If you know what it feels like to be securely held, you inherently know how to hold others when you grow up.
Right. But now I want you to imagine the inverse of that. Imagine an entire system designed specifically to destroy that template.
This is where the notes bring up Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Douglass wrote extensively about his personal experience in slavery. And one of the key things he highlighted wasn't just the horrific physical violence, but the psychological, emotional architecture of the system itself. He talked about the systematic separation of mothers and children.
Which wasn't accidental.
No, it's deeply strategic. Douglass called the bond between a mother and her child the seedbed of resistance. If you let a child form a deep, unbreakable bond with a parent, they learn loyalty, they learn love, they learn fundamentally that they are a human being worthy of care.
And if you break that bond,
If you rip the child away, which Douglass described happening very often before the child was even 12 months old, you completely destroy their sense of self. You make them easier to control. Connection is power. Isolation is a weapon.
that is just horrifying. But it really underscores why caring isn't just a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. It is a literal act of resistance.
It is. When you care for someone, when you maintain those outer circles and those bonds, you are actively fighting against entropy. You are fighting against the forces in the world that want to isolate and commodify human beings.
It really echoes that famous John Donne line, "No man is an island."
Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. That word involved is the absolute key. To deny that involvement, to retreat into your own little inner bubble and ignore the outer circles, that is to diminish your own humanity.
So we have this massive responsibility. We have to care. We have to practice it technically like a sport. We have to maintain our connections against all odds. But I have to bring us back to where we started today, to the Lorax.
Okay, let's go back.
Because we've been talking this whole time about how important it is to care. But if you actually read the end of the book, the Lorax loses.
He does lose.
He doesn't save the forest.
Right.
The Onceler just keeps chopping down the trees. The factory pollutes the air. The fish die. The bears have to leave. And the Lorax literally lifts himself up by the seat of his pants and flies away through a hole in the smog. It's a tragedy.
It is a complete tragedy. There is no neat Hollywood ending to that story.
So what are we supposed to do with that? We do all this heavy philosophical work. We embrace the beautiful madness of caring for the outer circles, and we might still completely lose.
Yes, that is the stark reality. But remember what the Lorax leaves behind when he goes. He leaves a small pile of rocks with just one single word carved into them.
Unless.
Unless. It's a conditional word. It's a door deliberately left open. It shifts the burden entirely from the story to the reader, or in our case, to you, the listener. It's not a promise that things will be okay. It's a statement that they won't be okay unless...
Unless we plant the seed.
Right. And there's a quote from James Dean, of all people, in the source material that I think wraps this whole philosophy up beautifully. He said, "Dream as if you'll live forever, live as if you'll die today."
Which sounds like a cheesy bumper sticker until you actually unpack it in the context of what we've been talking about.
Think about it. You need the dream forever part to have any sort of direction, to know what the forest should look like in the end, to have the grand vision of the Lorax. But you must act as if today is the only day that actually counts.
You have to hit behind the runner today.
You have to help the neighbor today.
Because history isn't just some river that automatically carries us along to a better place, is it?
No. The text says history is a field of seeds. It doesn't plan itself. You have that spring of goodness inside you that Marcus Aurelius talked about. You hold the seed, but absolutely nothing happens unless you physically put it in the ground.
Unless.
Unless.
That is a heavy word to end on, but I think it's the right one. Before we wrap up, though, I want to leave you with one final thought based on everything we uncovered today. We've talked a lot about the grand vision and the invisible work. So I want you to ask yourself right now, who is the runner you need to move over today? Not tomorrow, not next year. What is the one unglamorous, inconvenient Jamie Carroll act of caring you can do before you go to sleep tonight? Find your runner and move him over. Thank you for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, good luck with your circles. We'll see you in the next deep dive.